right, exercise prescription for older adults. This is chapter 12 in your textbook. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about older adults. First, I like to start with you thinking about these questions, okay? For older adults and aging, okay, what do you, I'm going to give you some time to talk amongst your group. What age do you consider to be old? Don't talk amongst each other yet. Just maybe write down in your head or put that in your notes somewhere. What age do you consider, if you're going to talk about somebody being old, what is that number? Okay. Now that you have that in your head, what does a person that age, if you were going to mimic how they walk, if you had to like show someone how they walk, what kinds of movements would you do? So how does someone who you consider to be old, how do they walk? Okay. Then how does that old person, same old person, how do they do jumping jacks? Okay. Just think about how they may do them. Okay, and your view of what this old person may look like. And then this is more of a personal question for you. If you were asked, what is your ideal age span? So meaning, how long do you want to live? What is your number that you say, yeah, I want to live to be this old? And is there any possibility that you would like to grow to be 100 or beyond, be a centenarian? That's a big status thing in this world. To be 100 years old or more. There are lots of studies done on those folks. So would that be something that would be on your list of things to accomplish in this life? Okay, so take some time to think about that, and then I want you to talk to your group about those questions, and then we're going to do a little bit of mimicking and role playing. Okay, so go ahead and talk to your group. I'm going to pause this for a minute. I guess maybe I have to do that. Alright. You also have that link to that video on your module, so you can go to it and share it. So older adults, some of you defined it, maybe you looked ahead or read ahead, and so as far as age is concerned, older adults start at 65, but it could also be earlier if they have chronic conditions and other issues already, so it could happen earlier. But older adults are defined by being 65 or older. And those who, again, who are severely deconditioned and have other unique diseases or frailties that define them as being older. Older adult populations do tend to be more susceptible. You've been around in this world a little bit longer, so they do, as you age, you do become more susceptible to chronic conditions like heart disease, diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, arthritis, osteopenia, osteoporosis, right? The older you go, the more likely, the higher your risk of ensuing any of those conditions. So for some of the folks that will come see you that are defined as older adults and they've been sedentary, that is really the point we want to remember when we go back to remembering ACSM screening, for example, that is for those that have not been physically active, that more than likely they may have some other chronic condition. Exercise does seem to deter the diseases that may happen as we age. So older adult populations, the goal is to keep older adults active, moving. Like he said in the video, when you stop doing, that's when you stop. I know I messed it up, but that's when you start to be old, when you stop moving around and doing things. And so that's what we want to prevent from happening. We want to make sure that they remain independent and that they can do activities of daily living without the help of others or care family members or having to move out of their homes at an older age and live in a nursing home, for example, which then we have to worry about other psychological issues and conditions that could affect older adults. So the goal of working with older adults is to maintain that vibrancy, that independence all throughout their life. So as maybe you haven't heard me say it, but my goal is to just grow old, not with this decline that we see, but just kind of slight, maybe I'll take a slight decrease and just kind of just drop off of the face of the earth. Just kind of, that's it. So one day I don't wake up, all right? But what can get sometimes overwhelming is to see what we see in so many older adults, the disability that comes about from the longer you are on this earth. So that's what scares many of us to not wanting to live to be older age. So exercise, though, is the answer for that, and we'll talk about all the reasons why that may be. So older populations, they stay physically active because of all that? They do not. So the majority of them, many because of the time when they were growing up. Right now we're looking at baby boomers. Exercise was not what we didn't know as much as we did know now. So for the most part, many of them are not physically active enough. And if you go back and think about what we talked about last week with youth, and how many of the youth and adolescents are, as they get older, become less physically active as well. When you transfer that over to adulthood, then continue to be less physically active. Only about a quarter of the population may be doing any activity at all, and only a smaller percentage of that are doing significant amounts. So that won't try as they become older adults, then that's even less the case. And if they end up with a chronic condition or debilitating condition like arthritis, for example, that limits physical activity even more so. So we have to consider all that. So again, going back to some of the stuff that why this may be, just look at the numbers of the youth meeting activities. As far as that aerobics goes, only 15% at that age, when everything is good in your life, you're fit, you're young, everything is developing, only 15% engage in aerobic exercise, only 51% do any kind of muscle strengthening activity, and only 12% do both. So imagine how that's not, as they get into adult life and a career and family life, that leads to even less physical activity when you look at the 65-year-old population. Just looking at, and I'm focusing on muscle strengthening exercise because as we get older, one of the losses, not only do we lose bone, but we also lose lean body mass. Anybody know what that's called in older adults? The loss of lean body mass? Sarcopenia. Sarcopenia. Sarco relates to muscle or meat, really. So sarcopenia. So we have osteopenia, loss of bone, which happens as we get older, starts to happen primarily due as a result of lack of physical activity. And the same goes for loss of lean body mass. And so that's those are markers of aging. So if we can focus on muscle strengthening activities, muscle strengthening would only strengthen the muscles, no, it also strengthens the bones, right? So to keep bones strong, strength resistance type exercises is the solution for that. But look at youth. So if they're not even doing it at a young age, right? They're not only 51% of youth, and we'll separate it between gender in a little bit here. Then adult men, it goes down to 22%, and adult women even much less than that. It is the female population that is going to be needing it even more so, because they're at a higher risk for osteopenia and sarcopenia. So they're the ones that may need it the most and not quite getting it. So again, you should be thinking about then, I can see what the focus of my training with older adults may be. Priorities. And if you look at strength training, again, by age, the young, high school, a lot of that has to do with aesthetic training. You know what I'm talking about? Mirror image training, right? We're at that age where we're trying to attract, people that we like. And so there's a lot of that research that looks at that. So more than half of all high school men will be engaged in resistance training. But then it starts to drop down as, again, adulthood happens and you become older. We're only at the age that we're looking at older adults, only 14% are involved in any type of strength training or resistance training. And we're not even considering what type of resistance training that they're doing. Is it the same program that they were doing 30 years back? Because that may be the case, which may not even be doing that much at that point, except tiny little bit of maintenance. So what percentage of that 14% is actually doing overload and progression and continuous improvement? right? Because that you can still get stronger as a centenarian. Some studies have looked at that. So it's not that you lose your ability to get stronger as you get older. You can still get stronger at any age. So then that we see how some of those issues that we see in the disability in older adults is partly related to lack of proper exercise. And you can, by the way, you can pull these are from the CDC. So these are public information that you can track over time. And so you look at women. So look at women, they start off way less, only about approximately a third of females will engage in any type of strength training. Usually those were maybe athletes at a young age, maybe involved in high school sports, but it's a very small number. And then again, it begins to drop down in adulthood. And after 65, then only about 14% are doing any type of strength training. And again, this is just something that they might label strength training. We don't know exactly what the program design that they're engaged in may look like. So maybe they're moving around weights. Maybe it's those tiny little pink weights. You've seen those, right? Like I tell my clients and my group exercise members, if your purse weighs more than that, come on. And it does. You've seen mine. It's like my mom's purse is like bricks. And then she worries about lifting too heavy stuff, and she's gonna hurt something. So that we don't even know. So that 14% is just that they state they're doing some type of resistance training, but we don't know if it's effective, right? So it's hard to say, but more than likely, it's not. Other determinants of participation in strength training activities among U.S. adults. Here's what we need. So lower likelihood of participating in strength training is older adults, again 65 or older, less likelihood to partake in any kind of resistance training. Women, obese, or those that are in fair or in poor health. They're very less likely to participate. Most likely to participate, the folks that really don't need it as much, those with higher levels of education. If they're doing any other types of other types of activities, like aerobic types of activities, and those are already in excellent health, right? But who needs it the most? Yeah, these folks right here, older adults and women. So I didn't circle obese because one protection that you get with extra higher BMIs is that you're moving around extra amount of weight. So sarcopenia is not an issue for those that have obesity because of that's one protection that the extra weight will give you. But certainly older adults, women, and especially older females that are more frail, meaning they're thin. Those are the ones that are more susceptible to life-limiting injuries that are going to then limit their physical activity. So they're the ones that need it the most. So if you encounter that population, your job is to sell them on this idea that lifting weights is a good thing. Lifting weights is not going to hurt them. Lifting weights is not going to make you, like some of my female clients, look like a man. You're 75 years old. Come on, okay? So that they have a lot of fears built in that you have to talk them out of, or that if they have that delayed onset muscle soreness, right, which we love, some of us, right, we look forward to that. The second day when you can't even get up and down or go up a flight of stairs because you did leg day, right? For them, they feel that soreness, that you've injured them, right? So you have to be careful going in to explain that they should expect, if it's something new that they haven't done, that they're going to have delayed onset muscle soreness. That is normal. That's the way of the body improving and getting stronger. But that does create a little bit of fear in the older adults, especially those that do not have an exercise history where they've been active in their life. And so part of the programming is to be conservative, and if we can avoid overload the amount of volume that would lead to delayed onset muscle soreness, then we have to do that. Okay, so why is it important to learn about exercise for older adults? Any ideas? Do you remember from some of the first classes, what is the largest growing segment of our population? Old people. Yeah, baby boomers are starting to retire. And they were the largest, most numbers that we had. So if you are going to be working anywhere in the healthcare field, you're very likely to have to work with older adults that have varying needs, and it's a population you're going to encounter on all different levels. So that's especially for us as exercise physiologists, exercise practitioners, understanding the differences or what may be the priorities to go through the aging years without disability, delaying disability, and with a high quality of life, so you can enjoy life. I have 4 daughters. My youngest is 13. We count down the days until she's 18. Because my husband and I are still feel fit and active and ready to go all over the world with all this money we're going to be saving, not paying for dance. Right? And so we want to be able to do these things. I still, we're married 30 years, we still love each other, right? But imagine how bad that would be if one of us was ill or disabled or had chronic conditions. That would really put a damper on all of that. So that's part of what we want to consider for every older adult, that we want to maintain that quality of life in the older years. So they don't want to go. So people are living longer, so that's the reason why we need to be prepared. People are living longer. Some of it's better living through medical treatments, right? So not necessarily better quality of life for all, but they are living longer lives. So population over age 65 has grown 200% since the 1900s. A lot of improvements in treatments and medical care and things that we didn't, and antibiotics and things we didn't know in the past that we know now. They are 12% of the population now, but by 2030, which is not that far off, right? 12 years from now, 20% of the population. So you guys, when you're in the prime of your careers, you're going to be encountering a lot more older. And when you've seen this before, so you see that look at the amount of folks over 100. How that's going to expand. So a lot more centenarians, but hopefully, again, those centenarians are not dependent on other folks. They're not dependent on the healthcare system. They're independent and functioning and contributing to society. Even after you retire, there's so many other things you could do in your communities, in your churches, to still stay. We have some older adults here that come and take classes. You've seen them? They just come and audit classes and continue to learn. I can see myself doing that. I've always felt safe in educational environments. That's why I'm still here. So that's what we want that's the kind of goal or perspective that we want to get for our clients. So boom in 100-year-olds by 2050 is what we see, to reach about 6 million mid-century. Fastest growing age segment, 20 times the rate of total population by 2050. But when as I asked you guys, and you have a different perspective because you are in exercise science and health and wellness, and you have a view that if you continue to stay active, that maybe your life will be a lot better quality. But 56% of adults surveyed did not want to live to be 100 for some of the reasons that some of you guys stated, because of, that just doesn't look so good when you're not being able to do all the things that you can do. If you click on that, you can actually go and read the entire study. They actually would not want to live that long. The ideal range between 79 to 100, but not really past that marker. Why not? Again, why not is because they feel that would not be a good type of life, that they would lose the ability to do the things that they enjoy doing, that they would be dependent on their children or significant others or family members, or be in a nursing home, and that's not what they want for themselves. So that's why they here. If you go to Living to 100, it's a calculator, and it'll ask you. You do have to leave your email at some point in there. That's about the only thing they ask. Is free, but they ask specific questions about your lifestyle, like do you wear a seatbelt? Do you brush your teeth? Right? Do you use dental floss? How often? So they ask you many questions that you don't think maybe related. They ask you about your social interactions, how you deal with stress. Well, are you basically an optimist or you're not? Because to live to be 100 or past that, you have to have a positive outlook about life, right? Because life challenges you all the time. So if you let life get you down, living to 100 is going to be tough. So really cool questionnaire about, and then at the end it tells you based on your lifestyle how old you're going to live to be. Okay, so try that out and see how you do with that, living to 100. And it's free. We got some amazing older adults. This is Ernestine Shepard, the bench pressing golden girl of 78. I like to show you her. She's pretty cool. This what she's older now. This is when she was. Oh no! What happened? I'll have to find. Wait here. Let's find Ernestine. Sometimes they just. There we go. So, well, let's take a quick break and then we'll talk about what are some of the factors associated with aging. So we'll talk about, and it's kind of depressing how each of the systems of the body deteriorates, but we'll talk about it next. Let's take a quick. What are some of the factors associated with aging? So now we're going to look at the systems of the body and how they may change as a result of aging. Last week, when we're talking about youth, we saw the differences that take place and how they have to develop and mature into adulthood. Now we're seeing the other side of the curve. So let's see. And again, this is not going to happen at the same rate for everyone. So it depends on their activity. So we go back to the same thing we talked about last week. And it was, I think Chris talked about this earlier on, or your group. Age. So when we look at aging, it is really about the biological age that makes a difference when it comes to health and lifestyle and the quality of life that an older adult may have. So as we look, chronological age is just the year that you were born and what year is it now. Your age in years. Biological age, it is based on your physical level of performance and how your body systems are doing. And we can assess a lot of this with tests and assessments and see how you do based on what your chronological age says that you should be at. So as we saw with children and adolescents, it does not happen at the same rate. So given the same year that you were born, depending on many factors, especially physical activity and lifestyle, it's going to happen at different rates for older adults. So there's going to be considerable individual differences, and so you can't rate all 65-year-olds as the same. In working with older adults, the first step, it's doing the same things that we would do with anybody else. You have to conduct a health history form. You have to screen them for any kinds of things that they need to go see the doctor first. And then you're going to conduct fitness assessments. And there's some fitness assessments that will be more appropriate for older adults. We'll talk about especially those that have been sedentary. And we'll make some decisions for their exercise programming based on those assessments. So that's still part of what we have to do. You can't just go by the chronological. So one of the challenges in older age is maintaining balance. So for the systems of your body to function properly, there's happy windows where they have to stay. If you remember when we talked about diabetes, blood sugar levels. So that thermostat, and I put a thermostat. That's an old school thermostat. I get it. I used to be like a dial thingy. Okay, but so that is one of the first factors that begins to fail. The ability to keep that temperature or that thermostat for each system where it needs to be begins to not work like it should. So the system begins to go to the extremes too far, and that happens. So the ability of the body to maintain that relatively happy place, that's what I think about for homeostasis, that happy place, that regardless of what's going on in the system, to bring you back to that happy place, that begins to falter as we get older. So it is crucial though for optimal function of body cells. So when that is not happening, we may see some issues with body cells that don't come back after cell death. And, we'll talk a little bit about that. We have programmed cell death. And usually when cells come back, they should come back just like the old cells that were disposed of. And so that's a process that should happen as we get older. Then we don't have as many new cells coming back as we did old cells that we got rid of, and so there's this imbalance. The best explanation I heard that got me and I understood it, I heard about aging, was one of the aging researchers. He said, well, when you have an original document, you make a copy of the original document. The first copy, it's good, right? Yes? Yes. We have only one person is like, okay, yes, okay. Play along, class, play along. So now if you take that copy of the original and you make another copy, still may look okay, but maybe you start to see some things, right? As you keep going and making more copies of a copy, let's say you go down 100 times, how is it going to look? Right? Think about that, the original. And so that's how aging kind of happens. So when you have the new cells coming back, they're not really quite as great as the other cells, as the original cells used to be, right? And so that's the changes that we see in aging, especially the changes that we can see in the skin in particular, the integumentary system in particular, are some of the obvious differences that we see in individuals with aging. Okay, but body temperature requires homeostasis. Blood pH requires homeostasis, especially with exercise and exercise intensity. Blood glucose level, calcium concentration, right? So if that happens with calcium, we're going to have some issues with bone mineral density. Stomach pH, so that's just how the body functions to keep every system of the body in tip-top shape. And so when that begins to falter, these are some of the issues that we see with the body. So apoptosis, and people say it in different ways. I say it with my Cuban accents, apoptosis, and you can say it however you like, but it is programmed self-death. It's controlled. That is an active link. Khan Academy actually explains it for you, really show you exactly what happens. But if you look at this diagram up here, it's a normal process, healthy cell. If there's some kind of injury or something happens to the cell, maybe if you're talking maybe some cell damage to sun, for example, if you're talking about the epidermis, the cell attempts to repair all errors, then all errors are repaired. For some errors may remain after that, and there's more injury to the cell is not able to repair at all, and so this is when programmed self-death will happen. We don't need that cell, we need a brand new one. We need a new copy. So we can't fix it, right? And so we have a new copy. So that's programmed self-death. As we get older, we get too much of that many cells that cannot be repaired, and so the net balance of good cells versus not so good is off. And so that's what we see some of when we're talking about every organ of the body made up of cells. You're all made up of cells, so that's going to affect different organs in different ways, or systems of the body in different ways as well. So it is usually not a bad thing because it leads to better functioning of all cells. It is again when the balance is thrown off. So it is essential for optimal functioning. Tissue renewal is intrinsically programmed. When the cell is not good and we can't repair it, bye-bye. Okay, and so it's a way to eliminate unwanted cells. And it's a normal process of a biological system. So, but the problems result is, and we see more of this as we get older, when the loss of cells outpaces the replacement. So we have imbalance, and so tissues of the body may atrophy. You have limited tissue function. It's not functioning as optimally as it used to when you were a younger age. Do not confuse apoptosis with necrosis. Necrosis is due to trauma or infection. You may see that in individuals with diabetes, especially in the extremities. And so that is actually uncontrolled, passive swelling, and that many times may lead to amputation. So we're not talking about necrosis. That's not that. We're talking about normal self-programmed cell death, apoptosis. So homeostasis and aging, again, I have this guy here, it's unbalanced. And so that's what we're trying to fight against. Trying to fight that it's a process of cumulative homeostatic imbalances in many different systems of the body as aging continues on. Cells lose their ability to function. Tissues are going to deteriorate. Organ function also. Organ systems are not going to be as great or as efficient as they used to be. And so it is a problem of homeostasis, be unable to maintain homeostasis. And again, we looked at that with diabetes and what happens with that. Imagine that happening with everything else that needs to be at that happy place. So we looked at this already when we talked about musculoskeletal injuries, but I want to remind you, bone tissue, because it's a process that that's going to be one of the factors with aging, losing bone as we become older, and getting to osteopenia first, which is 1 standard deviation less of the normal amount of bone, and then 2 standard deviations osteoporosis. So if you remember what we talked about then, osteoblasts build more bone. B for builder, remember that, B for builder, and so you'll remember that for later on. So osteoblasts are the builders, so they lay down more bone. Osteoclasts are the destroyers, but we don't want to think about the destroyers as bad because they bring calcium into the blood. They can go to, for example, for muscle contraction. So it is a normal process. It is, again, when the balance is thrown out, when the amount of osteoclast activity is greater than the amount of osteoblast activity. And so with aging, and it's affected by hormones, especially after menopause for females, when the loss of estrogen, this is a significant change, and that's when they have to be proactive about diet and exercise, and if they need supplementation, then they need to take many times calcium and vitamin D as a result, but it is influenced by dietary. This again is all the hormones involved in bone remodeling. Many of these again could be impacted with aging. So with aging, osteoclast activity again is greater than osteoblast activity, and that's what we want to fight against. So do we remember, as far as exercise, what type of exercise will promote more bone mineral density? Weight bearing is one, right? Using gravity, that's one. Weight bearing exercise. What else? Based on Wolff's law, resistance training. Don't forget that one. Okay, that's why I started with resistance training emphasis. Resistance training provides muscular forces that compress or have compressive forces or tensile forces that stimulate bone growth, that increase osteoblast activity. Okay, so resistance training is something to consider. Yes, weight-bearing exercise, but especially if we want to promote decrease the rate of bone loss, resistance exercise will be one of the priorities. So, and again, I don't want to say that osteoclasts are the bad guys, because we need them in order to have the calcium that we need in the blood, so they can help with many different functions in the body. But it is the balance, is this homeostatic balance that is off, where you have more osteoclast activity than osteoblast, that is want to combat again. So calcium, body needs calcium for nerve cell functioning, muscle fiber contraction, blood clotting, so it's required, and so it's a process that are much more important for survival than maintaining bone structure, are going to take precedent. Going back to pregnancy, mothers that do not have a diet that sustains the pregnancy, maybe they're calcium deficient, the baby is going to get the calcium it needs, but that's going to impact the mother's bone mineral density. So it is all a process of your lifestyle throughout your life, and so other processes are going to be a priority, and what's going to be hurt by that is the amount of bone that is actually laid down, and that will take you throughout your adulthood. So body tries to maintain blood calcium levels, so if it's not coming from the diet, it's going to get it from the bone, and so that's important that they keep a constant level and range. So if it's inadequate, then when blood calcium levels drop, then the body is going to use osteoclast activity to get it. So one of the challenges is that older females tend to not eat as much as they should be eating, right? So just the number of calories first is not adequate, and as a result, not only are they not getting enough protein and iron, but they also may not be getting enough calcium. They may not consume a lot of dairy. As you become older, you may also become either sensitive to milk or even lactose intolerant, and so then they just do away with it, do away with whole food group, right? And so that becomes more, especially if you're not getting enough calories. And so that's going to be a concern, because if there's not enough calcium available, then it's going to be taken from the bone. So that's how that happens. So which body systems are most affected by aging? So really all of them are, but we'll talk about it. Again, thermal regulation is going to be a challenge for older adults as well, as it was for pregnancy and it was for youth, for different reasons. But we're still going to be concerned about environmental temperature, how much sun they're going to be exposed to, radiation. Is it very humid? If it's humid, they're not going to be able to use evaporation for cooling off. And what is the actual temperature outdoors? So we're going to keep all those things in mind. Vessels are going to be stiffer and not going to have as much as elasticity, including the heart. We talked about that when we talked about cardiovascular disease. But even if you don't have cardiovascular disease, just as the process of aging, arteries are going to lose some of that elasticity that you had at a young age. So they're not going to be where they were. During submaximal exercise, aging tends to result in higher ventilatory rates, blood pressure, oxygen extraction. So cardiac output and stroke volume are going to actually decrease. Remember, we're talking about individuals that are not physically active. So some of this stuff can be attenuated if you are maintaining physical activity. So if you remain sedentary, and what we saw the data at the beginning of how many people are actually staying active into older adulthood, not many. So for most of these folks, we're going to see again the opposite of what you would see as a training adaptation. So instead of stroke volume becoming larger and having a reduced heart rate, the opposite effect happens. So now we're going to have smaller heart rate, it's smaller stroke volume. That's how. Do we remember what stroke volume is? How much blood, so the amount of blood that is pushed out with one contraction, all right? The volume, so not the percentage, that would be ejection fraction, but how much blood. So that has to do with the strength of the myocardium, how strong it can contract. So if you're not training it, you're not doing cardiovascular exercise, it's going to get weaker. So when the heart contracts, it's not going to be able to pump as much blood out. And so the opposite. So now to maintain a given cardiac output, we get the opposite effect here, right? So now the heart rate has to be higher. You see that? What happens as a cardiovascular training effect to resting heart rate? Gotcha. Oh, she asked another question. Oh no. Okay. So you had pre-training, you running a 10-minute mile, you had a 150 heart rate. Post-training, you can still maintain the same cardiac output, but now your heart rate is only 130. What happened there? Well, it meant that your heart got stronger, your stroke volume was able to pump more blood out, so you could still maintain the same, amount of blood per minute at a lower heart rate. Now think about the opposite happening now. So now, as you get older, you don't have the ability to squeeze so much blood out, so the stroke volume decreases. So for any given activity with a required cardiac output, what's going to happen to heart rate? First of all, what's cardiac output? What's the product? What's the math? Maybe we should start there. What is cardiac output? Stroke volume and times heart rate. Okay, so it's per minute. How much blood are you pumping out per minute? And that is, heart rate is how much you contract per minute. So for a same given cardiac output, okay, as I have become an older adult and I have smaller stroke volume, right? So the stroke volume is volume, but cardiac output needs to be here. I need to bring that heart rate up, right? If I pump more often, then I can meet that cardiac output, but at a much higher heart rate. So it's more stressful for the adult, right? So hopefully you're clear with this. I know you guys you're seniors, you've taken this before, so don't scare me. This should be easy stuff. It's like XPhys, first week probably. Yeah, so okay, good. Say yes, we know that we just we're thinking about something else. Just tell me that. Okay. Okay, good. Because some of you look like, what is she saying? I don't know what she's saying. Okay. Older individuals overall a lower exercise capacity. Why? What's max heart rate? Oh, there she goes again with the question. What is max heart rate? Yes, 220 what? Minus your age. So if I'm 65 versus somebody who's 40, who's going to have a lower max heart rate? The older person, right? Right. So at any maximal exercise intensity, it's gonna be at a higher percentage of their maximum. So exercise again is gonna feel a lot more challenging for all the individuals based on their lower overall exercise capacity, right? So now again, think about the training adaptations that we get with cardiovascular exercise. Now think about the opposite of that, deconditioning, right? So the opposite of that. So the improvements you see with exercise, now we're getting the opposite results for those individuals that got older but continue to remain sedentary into their older years. And now, as far as thermal rate regulation, the number and activity of sweat glands. Now, remember, children have the sweat glands, but what's wrong with the sweat glands in children? They're not efficient yet, right? So they're not doing what they got to do. With older adults, they actually decrease the number of sweat glands, and they also don't have as much capillary density, so it's the blood pathways to the surface so that you can get rid of the extra heat that is generated with exercise. So the cooling mechanism is going to be inefficient, again, like it was for children. And so we have to be aware what kinds of environments we're going to put them in. So dealing with heat is going to be an important consideration. The skin, I put this first because this is perhaps what we see on the outside, and there's different rates of what effects it has on the skin. But the epidermis, the dermis, hypodermis, sweat glands, oil glands, hair, nails, and nerves are all affected. With aging, the epidermis and dermis are going to thin out a bit, so it's going to be more prone to injury. The nerve receptors are not going to be as sensitive as they were. So it's many times older adults will like scratch themselves and they don't even know, so they didn't. So less responsive to pain, pressure, heat, and cold. I mean, this is given that they don't have any other neurological conditions that may be affecting that, like diabetes, for example, and neuropathy. We're talking just about normal aging process. I'm telling you this part of the presentation is depressing, but I'm going to bring you back up, I promise. Okay? It's like, no, I don't want to, I wanted to get older, no, I don't. No. So number of sweat glands decreases, and again, it's going to be harder to cool down because through evaporation. So sweat, if you're an efficient sweater, if you sweat a lot, you have an amazing cooling system. I know it sounds funny, you're a sweater. My husband is a sweater. He just like moves and he's like, so he's very efficient. He doesn't overheat, right? Because it's just, but then he has to make sure he drinks a lot of water. And I try to salt his food, because we work out together. I'm like, I don't want to, spot him because he's just like, but still it doesn't work. He still sweats a lot. I need to really salt, salt tablets. I don't know, but if you have an efficient cooling system, then that's great. And older adults may not have that because you have the sweat. And if you have, obviously you need some kind of wind. If you sweat and it's humid and there's no wind, it's not doing you any good. So we have to be, aware of that. And again, because number of capillaries decrease, the heat that is created in your core that needs to come to the blood and be through metabolism that needs to be brought out, doesn't happen, right, as efficiently. And so they have a harder time maintaining healthy core. The nervous system. So this may be one that we may notice, especially in older adults. In case you didn't know, it enables people to perceive and react to changes in the environment, internal and external environment. So reflexes are included in there as well. With aging, guess what? Okay, so decreased total number of neurons. So the opposite of what we saw with children, right? So now we have less. So less means of being able to communicate with each other. Less neurotransmitters. This is at the axon boutons at the end, what goes into contact with the muscle, for example. So communication is not as great. So how fast you move, efficiency, what's it called? Fine motor control. Those things are going to be impaired a bit. decreased brain size, right? Especially if, again, for those that have not been involved in activities that encourage it. Memory, hearing, balance, everything to do with neurological system, vision, smell, taste acuity, all of those things could be impaired at different levels and at different times. So it's not like at 65 this is going to happen. It's a process. And so how long are we going to delay this from being a severe disability? That's the key question here. Reflexes are slower. Reflexes, for example, if you think about touching something that is hot, that's one. Or your muscle spindle that senses stretch and should contract to keep you from hurting yourself. All of these are going to be impaired with older adults. So when we're considering exercise, we have to consider that as well. Musculoskeletal health, and I have tandem walking because that's a great activity to work on with older adults, walking in a straight line to help with balance, and maybe we'll spend some more time with balance, and we'll talk about why in a minute. But loss of bone and muscle with age is going to increase the risk for falls and hip fractures and long-term disability. And so working with older adults, especially if they already had a fall, you want to go in and part of it, yes, strength training is going to help with that, certainly it's going to help with that, but maybe you have a built-in plan to build up their confidence about being independent and walking without the assistance of a cane, for example, or anything else. And so you could do stand up. Go ahead and stand up because you guys have been sitting at the end of the semester or getting there. Stand up and face that way, everybody, because you're in rows, okay? Make a line, bring your chairs in or back so you have room to walk. Okay? Okay? So put one foot in front of the other, so heel to toe. Some of you, I'm sober. Yes. Could you possibly train to pass that test when you're not sober? Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I'm just thinking freely here. All right. So try. You can bring the hands out if you like, but try walking in a straight line. You can bring your hands wherever you like. All right. You're looking down first, right? Then you can try looking straight ahead. Okay. Stop. Okay. Now pivot and try it the other way. So for most of you, this is not a challenge. For some of you, I'm concerned. Okay. Okay. And then try it again. Pivot. Okay. Then can we make it more challenging? We can lift one knee up. One knee up. One knee up. One knee up. Knee up. Okay, pivot. You can actually lift if you like. Lift. Gymnastics, anybody? Okay. Lift. You're like, why can't I do this? Okay, stay there. You can also walk backwards. You may have to look down. More, or look behind you. Look behind you. This is all body awareness. Proprioceptor, so you know where you are in space. Go back, go back, go back, right? So all of that, see, that if they can do these things, that builds their confidence. And they don't limit things that they would have done otherwise because of a fear of a fall. And so fear of a fall, or because of how to fall in the past, leads to not doing things. Not doing things leads to not having as much bone mineral density or as much lean body mass. So that leads to more disability. So it's has kind of a snowball effect. As soon as that older adult says, you know what, I would feel so much safer if I had a cane, right? Now I have a cane. Now I get to my day with this cane, right? And now I'm more disabled because the cane is helping me to go through life. And so what's next after a cane? I got a walker, right? And the walker's cool because that wheels, and I can, I feel so confident, right? So confident on that walker. But then, I'm leaning on it more and more each day, right? More and more each day. And then what comes next? That's a wheelchair, right? And now you're stuck. Now, wheelchair. After that, even more loss of functioning, more disability. The next step is your bed. You're in bed, and that's it, you guys. Bed rest. Every system of the body, when you're horizontal, doesn't function as well. Lungs, kidneys. Start the clock. Start the clock. So going into it is to keep older adults from ever saying no to the cane. Just say no. Or if they're on the cane, goes to get them out of that cane. I always say my grandmother, she was 89, but she died of osteoporosis because she had a fall and went in her bed because she was, and that was it. I think it was 6 months. An 89-year-old in bed is not something that's good. So that's the focus, to deal with that. Bones are going to become fragile. The less you use them, the more fragile they become. Hips, the endo bones in particular, as we talked about when we looked at musculoskeletal injuries. And once they have an injury like that, it could lead to disability. That's very difficult to recover and come back from. So after age 30, some of you guys, it's not that far off, there's a decrease in the cross-sectional areas of individual muscles, along with a decrease in muscle density and an increase in intramuscular fat. So it starts at the age of 30. So if you are sedentary. If you're sedentary, you're going to see it depends on your genetics, but about 5 to 10 pounds a decade of loss of muscle. Right? After 70, about 10 pounds for those who are sedentary. That's a lot. Think about the disability that would bring, and how muscles are attached to bones, and the bones are going to suffer as well. So being proactive about this is going to be essential for a good quality of life. So what happens, still as a process, is the muscle quality changes. So and I think I have some pictures soon here, but when you're young, it's lean and it kind of looks, there's not a lot of intramuscular fat. And as you get older, you begin to see a lot of more marbleization in the muscle. And so a young muscle, you try, like let's say a sprinter, right? A sprinter, if you try to move that leg around, nah, it's like a bricks, right? That is good quality muscle there, right? As you get older, even if you're like contracting, you can move that thing around. Why? Because there's so much intramuscular fat that's been deposited over time. So the quality of the muscle is one of the big challenges with aging. So women lose about 8% of bone mass every decade by the age of 45, right? Again, this is first, if not being proactive about it. Men lose about 3% of bone mass every decade by age 60. Again, men, this could be changing now because more and more our jobs are more similar. But baby boomers we're talking about, men develop more density, as we saw with the graphs I showed you earlier. During their peak bone years, that they're more likely to be doing strength training activities or sports or even work that requires physical activity. And then women are going to lose more bone rapidly because of menopause. So after menopause, have to be very proactive. The age of menopause to make lifestyle changes so that the drop is not so severe that they experience significant bone loss with that. As far as this is somewhat similar to what we talked about last week. We just showing you in a different chart, but amount of atrophy depends on amount at peak. So 6% loss per decade, and by 90 years old, 50% loss by 90 years old. So what effect does that have on the joints? Articular carriage is going to wear away, and bones begin rubbing against one another during movement, so it feels like arthritis, and it's painful. And when you have pain, you're going to limit your activity. The collagen fibers and ligaments also shorten, so then they're going to be less flexible. Your connective tissue is less flexible, so we begin to see we can't quite reach up there, right? We can't quite, like you guys are doing the jumping jacks like this, right? So that begins to happen a bit because we have more connective tissue in comparison to lean body mass, less blood supply as well, less synovial fluid that keeps everything oiled and good to go. And so all of these factors lead to older adults being more likely to have arthritis. And then arthritis is the main contributor to sedentary lifestyle in older adults and limiting physical activity. And so dealing with that is going to be important for older adults. So why do muscles get smaller and weaker? Because of that. Not because of a fat cat, but because of sedentary lifestyle. Okay, that is the reason muscles get smaller and weaker. Some people don't use them as much. Again, go back to the charts I showed you earlier on. It starts early in life. That continues on to adulthood, with only 65-year-olds are actually doing any kind of resistance training exercise. So very few of them are doing it. Most people are not. So disuse is the primary reason for muscle atrophy and weakness rather than aging, and then sarcopenia as a result, where you lose significant amount of muscle, and that leads to disability. So what happens when muscles lose strength and size? It becomes harder to do things of everyday life, like I was showing you. So climbing stairs, getting out of the chair, carry groceries, right? So those are activities that are required for daily living. And so when you can't do those things, so now look at the guy on the, I guess is your left. He's going up the stairs, holding onto the handrails. In Florida, we have a lot more ranch-style houses that don't have stairs, like you see up north. Primarily because we used to be a retirement state, right? And older adults did not want stairs. And so that's, and older adults kind of want to move away from having stairs. When in reality, if you could keep doing them, you wouldn't lose your disability. Getting out of a chair. So for some older adults, getting out of a chair is a 1 rep max. They got one and that's it. So that's like, they have to push themselves up, lean themselves forward. So we're going to look at some of the assessments for older adults. Have to do with getting in and out of a chair. How many times can you get up and down and out of a chair? So that's one of the assessments. Then again, eventually you get the cane. Oh, I got this, I'm gonna go use the cane. And then eventually maybe you get those things they advertise on TV. It'd just be kind of cool to have one. I know my kids would have loved that. When we had a tattoo store, they would have loved that. That thing would have been, great fun. But the lady in the picture looks, like she's pretty fit, but in reality, they're not gonna look like that, right? So that is not fun. So how can we keep our muscles strong and healthy? Many of these are active links. Right here, she's an acrobat, really cool. She's amazing to think. Look at her, all right? So, and Shirley Webb, she's a weightlifting grandma. You can look at her. It started later in life, okay? And this is my favorite. This is gonna be my husband and myself when we're in our 90s. We just can't wait for the kids to leave so we can have a run of the house. Okay, so that's the kind of life that you can see in the future. Of course, I'm gonna still dye my hair red or whatever color, but I'm not gonna go with gray. But still, that looks like fun. Kind of life I want to have. London, going with keeping older adults active, opened a play area for seniors with equipment that was larger. You can click on that and look at it and read it. There's a video there that shows you. Again, for the social interactions, the aspects, the toughest part of living as a retiree older adult is that you lose your everyday interactions with other people. That leads to depression and a negative outlook on life. And so doing things like this, activities like this, that leads to living healthier, longer lives, good quality. Some studies, and I did put these on your reading assignments to read. This one was about live longer, walk faster. Not so much that if you start to walk faster, you're going to live longer. So not that kind. But people that live longer tend to walk at a faster rate. So I'm going to live to be 200. Because I tend to tailgate people when I'm walking. Anybody here? I like tailgate people where they move out of the way so I can just shoot. Okay, I have places to go and people to see. So they looked at that because how fast you walk is related with your leg strength. So here's the correlational study. Okay, so how fast you walk is related to your leg strength. So people that have stronger legs tend to live longer. And this study looked at people that walked faster lived 5 to 10 more years longer than their counterparts than individuals. So the thing about this was to do tests assessing walking speed. And so some of the assessments that we're going to look at actually how fast you walk 30 feet as a marker, as a measure of how well you're doing right now at this age. So some of the tests will look at that, so that's the benefits of knowing that information, because we can see how and if you remember when we looked at the respiratory diseases for COPD, how much you could walk is also one of those things you want to know. So it's connected all to this as well. And this is an article published in the Journal American Medical Association. It's really good, really cool study. Live longer, get stronger. So yeah, back to where we started on focusing on strength training. This is called the Health ABC cohort. They found that strength, but not muscle mass. So it's not how much muscle you have, but how strong you are, was associated with how long you're going to live in the health, aging, and body composition study cohort. It's a really cool study, very involved, lots of different information. I just gave you the part that talks about strength for quality of life and living longer years. Muscle strength as the marker of muscle quality. So if you're, depending on your strength level, that means that the quality of your muscle is better than those that have lower amount of strength. So that is more important than quantity in estimating. The fear for older adults is that with weights and resistance training is that they're going to hurt themselves. So we have to get over that. Another study with how often it happens and the effects of sarcopenia this is a very well-cited study. It's called the New Mexico Elder Health Survey, and you can read the whole study, but here's the take-home messages. As far as sarcopenia, we started to see it in the 65 to 69 year olds at 14%. As you get to be 80 years old, that's more than half of the folks are going to have it. It's a significant amount. Physical disability was 4 times greater in individuals with sarcopenia than in those that have normal muscle mass. Again, physical disability impairs your quality of life, limits the things that you can do as an older adult, makes you stay home and not play and not have fun because of not being able to do things. And that really has an impact on the quality of the years that you have left. So that's what we want to try to delay, not ever get. Delay that physical disability. So as far as tying it into the other study, the how fast you walk study, knee extensor strength. What muscles are your knee extensors? What are they called, your knee extensors? Are we confident? I got 2 people that are sort of confident. All right, everybody's confident? Are you sure? The quadriceps, yes, knee extensor. That's their job in life. Those 4 muscles extend your knee. So this is kind of cool because doesn't require a lot of equipment. All you need is a leg extension machine of some type, and with that you can predict how fast they're going to walk, and with that you can predict how many more years they got left. Right? I don't know if people want to know that. Hey, you only got 3 years. No. But it's as far as preventive exercise training, and as far as rehabilitative, if you go out to the other side in physical therapy world, that would be a good assessment to have and to know, so that you can be proactive and work on that. Another study, it's called Biomarkers Consortium Work Group. They found that those with low gait speed with poor strength those with poor strength were 7 times more likely to have a low gait speed. And they also talked about cut points for sarcopenia in different individuals. So here's what I was been leading to, the changes of muscle quality with age. Yes, I know this is steak, okay? This is a cow, but it's not so different. Still a mammal. So you look at 25. Who here is 25? Somebody over here. Look at what, again, this is with sedentary. You see all the extra subcutaneous fat, right? But look how much more marbleized, that's the femur in the middle there, okay? Look how much more marbleized it is. So if you compare that to USDA, I'm a visual learner, okay? I need to see. So this is actually cheaper meat, so I'm looking at the bright side. This is hard, you don't want to eat this so much, right? It's really kind of hard. I was like, all right, this is younger. USDA puts it as select. Prime, it's like the old beef, more marbleized, it's softer, moves around, gushier, juicier, right? So different kinds of categories. Maybe this is somebody in their, 35, 40 years old, somebody. So how long can we keep this going, right? That's the goal. How long can we stay here without getting into here? Because this is going to lead, the more of this we have, the more it's going to lead to disability. So that's what we want to try to focus on in our exercise program. So, are muscle weaknesses and muscle quality treatable? Can we treat muscle weakness and muscle quality? Everybody here better be shaking their head yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes. What can we do, class?
Resistance training.
Yay! Oh, yes, we can treat. Okay, so both treatable with resistance exercise. Okay. Look at him. Okay, so I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's doing, I don't know what he's doing. If he was doing an overhead press, I'd like him to bring his elbows up a little bit. But anyway, maybe he's just starting up. So look how much weight though. Okay, 3 plates on each side, so not bad. Anyway, so yes, it is. So the resistance training, when we're talking about program emphasis, resistance training for older adults is going to be a priority. And yes, together we're neuromotor training and flexibility as well. But to prevent, to delay, to slow down the effects of aging, we want to treat it through resistance. So, muscle weakness is treatable cause of disability. Resistance exercise is safe and effective method. Older adults experience improvements in protein synthesis rates and neuromuscular adaptation. Okay, so you can still, somebody, oh, you're too old. No. Again, studies done, and Wayne Westcott, the one that wrote that chapter in your textbook on older adults, he did studies on centenarians that were in hospitals already, like in wheelchairs, they couldn't even see their neck anymore, so much osteoporosis, and he was able to get them to get stronger so they could lift their head up and increase strength in that population, doing one set. Because he's a Nautilus guy, Wayne Westcott, he's a Nautilus guy. One set of each exercise, 8 to 12 repetitions, okay? So even at an older age, you can still get stronger. Aging persons with early onset issues, deterioration, are the most likely to benefit from early strategic interventions. And so we want to be that. ACSM recommendations for quantity and quality. They do have one for older adults, so it should be on your reading list, and make sure it is as well. Should train each major muscle group 2 to 3 days a week. That is not really different than the general recommendation. So one exercise list to start off with. Initially realize that if you're doing 8 to 10 exercises, that may be too much too soon. You will overwhelm them. Right, so part of, again, think about the brain, neurological system is slow down a little bit. You have to slowly give them new exercises. So maybe start with 3 to 4 exercises, and then work your way 1 exercise at a time. You really have to demonstrate. You have to demonstrate the exercise, have them do the exercise, and then give them some corrections without overwhelming them. So very conservative how many and how soon you introduce new activities. Start just to get the movement down, right? So you work on posture, body alignment, just what is it that I got to do here without worrying about the amount of weight initially. So very light intensity. Again, this is for those that have not been sedentary and they're brand new to exercise. Eventually you can work the 2 to 4 sets of exercise, but you're going to start with 1 initially, and you can go with any one of those, 8 to 12 reps to improve strength and power. Again, start conservative with just to get through the movement, maybe 15 to 20 reps, and those are not RM reps. And always in between the same muscle group, allow 48 hours. But gauge muscle soreness. If that first workout, when they come back and see you, I'm still sore, maybe you need to write that down and make sure you don't do as much. It's very surprising at first how little it takes to do too much with an older adult that's been sedentary. Someone who's been. So if you think they can do 5 exercises, just maybe try 3. and be very light on the weight, and see what kind of effect it has, because that soreness may create fear that they were injured or hurt, and they may not trust you as much or want to do that again. And we want to build trust so that they'll find that what we say is something that they want to. So resistance training, we all should be pre-screened. I'm going to pull up the ACSM new guidelines for a bit, in a little bit, because we need to review that, but they should be pre-screened. We're looking for, what are we looking based on ACSM screening? What is the first question on the flow chart that we need to know about older? If I have an older adult just came in, they're 68, what do I want to know for ACSM? The first question. Yep. Are you exercising? Have you been exercising regularly? Okay. If they do not, nope, I haven't done it for years. That leads you to different parts of the chart, right? Then what do we look for next? Remember? Do they have, let me see if it rings about cardiovascular, metabolic, or renal disease. So if they have a diagnosis, oh yeah, I had a heart attack, oh yeah, I have kidney disease, oh I have diabetes, right? Different path. Then what's next? Oh, if signs and symptoms right now of heart disease. I think in the last test, I had somebody who had nothing, but they were now complaining of leg calf pain. That's a sign and symptom that maybe they were okay, but now they're not okay. Go talk to your doctor, and so stop exercise. Okay. So we're doing all of that. It may be that you get an older adult that's 85, never had anything wrong. They're just old. Okay. And so where do you go on your charts? You would start with light to moderate intensity exercise. Okay. So as far as that, you not only are you going to screen all the older adults, but you're going to screen everyone. You're going to follow the ACSM screening guidelines. You're going to do your health history. You're going to do appropriate assessments for older adults and all of that. You're going to do, then you're going to, if you're going to exercise with them, you're going to obviously warm up. Some folks may need longer warm-ups than that. Static stretching exercises before, ideally, if you're doing it before, you're going to warm them up, okay? And then resistance training session. Make sure, again, it does not overtax the musculoskeletal system. As far as questions to ask and talk to your client about, they should not have pain through their range of motion. So you're only going to move through pain-free range of motion. Now, they may not know that, so you have to talk to them and say, throughout it, at any range of this motion that you feel pain, we're not going to take it that far. Okay, so throughout pain-free range of motion is what we're going to be moving. No breath holding. That's an advanced technique. So you want to be particularly careful that they're not holding their breath, and allow complete recovery in between sessions. And again, I did have it there. Make sure that throughout the range of motion, there is no pain at any point in the range of motion of that exercise. Yeah, qualified instructors. So as far as an instruction, again, important for all, but particularly important with older adults, demonstrate the activity. Okay, don't just say give them 10,000 cues. Okay, so you're gonna put your head up, shoulders back, abdominals in, feet out, spread out your toes. Okay, so one step at a time. Be very clear and concise. Demonstrate first, because they can see you doing it. Then have them try it. Then give them some feedback, and go from there. So you have to be able to break the activities down into the simplest components to make sure that they understand. So as far as some of the adaptations we'll see with age, these are very similar to what we see with normal adults. We're going to see improvements in muscular strength, power, endurance, muscle mass, muscle fiber size, resting and metabolic rate, all of these things, decreases in body fat. Again, not unlike you would see in the general population. The only difference is the magnitude. If you're a 25-year-old male, these numbers are, and you're doing these things, the numbers are going to be a lot greater increases than if you are a 75-year-old female. Okay, but you still see improvements. That's the take-home point with that. Okay, another point, and that affects some of the activities for older adults. when we begin to lose muscle mass, it is the type 2 muscle fibers that we lose. What are type 2 muscle fibers known as? The fast twitch, right? The ones that deal with strength and power. So if you're losing more of those, right, this is why perhaps we don't get as much hypertrophy as you would with younger adults. But this is some of the disabilities that we see with older adults as far as agility and quickness, ability to catch themselves when they trip, because type 2 muscle fibers are associated with how fast you can move. So we see a slowdown in movement, right? We can actually, everything tends to slow down a little bit. So it's first we lose type 2, right? More, and so that's the process of that goes. So the fast twitch muscle fibers mostly affected. So as far as what impact chronic exercise has, is all the good stuff about there's strong evidence that adequate amount and type of exercise is going to lower the risk for several cancers. So not just what we've been talking about, cardiovascular, but cancers, diabetes, and premature death. So yes, well, I know it's a given that we're all going to go, but dying before your time and because of a disease that comes on, less likely for those that are engaged in chronic exercise. And so even if previously individuals have been previously sedentary, now look at the marathon runner. She started at 86, right? And Ernestine started also later on in life, in her 60s, I believe, or early 70s. So you can even reap the benefits even if it doesn't matter when you start. So starting late in life is okay too. And one of the annoying complaints of older adults is problems with sleep, right? And so there's evidence that exercise actually enhances the quality of sleep, and so that helps with recovering of every system of your body. So we see improvements in the neurological system, and that tend to be associated with aging if we can get more rest as well. So other guidelines, again, don't forget about all the assessments and health screenings. All that still applies. We're gonna show you a few of the more specific screens or assessments that you may do with older adults. You just like everybody else, not different, but don't group them all together. You still need an individualized treatment plan. Here's some examples. So silver sneakers, it's kind of cool. I got a couple there, but I'll just show you this one. I'm not going to show you all. Just make sure you know what are signs and symptoms suggestive of CMR. Okay, there's a whole list of signs and symptoms. No, like leg pain that we missed last time. Okay, shortness of breath. Okay, so make sure you review. Special considerations to think about: kyphosis, we talked about, right? If they already have osteoporosis, they're having the rounding of the shoulders. Some of you, when you showed your walking impressions, you were showing that. Is arthritis present? If it's osteoporosis present, if they have that, then we have to take those into account, because now they also fall into those special populations, right? So all the exercise recommendations that we talked about for those conditions we need to follow. And of course, if they have cardiovascular disease, if they have COPD, then we have to take all that. So again, for your final exam, you may get an older adult that has other stuff going on, not just an older adult. So be ready to deal, because life clients that you may get are gonna show up to you that way with multiple things, that especially as we're looking at advanced age, that they may have. Consider always proper hydration. They may not want to drink a lot of water, going to lose taste and all that, but they're going to need to. So you may have to remind them to carry a water bottle, and that's going to help them with cooling. So have that ready, and make sure they drink often, especially if you're exercising and not so. All right, so ACSM continued here, intensity and duration. Start low for older adults. If you're dealing with frail, really weak older adults, thin, that already have issues with balance, focus on muscle strengthening activities and balance. Again, as you increase strength, it's going to improve coordination. It's going to decrease the risk for falls. It's going to improve walking speed, and it's going to improve overall functioning. So always be conservative. Don't forget about overload and progression. Again, you have to remember where you start based on this ACSM screening and work your way up from there from your assessments. And make sure that if you have any chronic conditions like arthritis, or if they have osteoporosis, or if they already have diabetes, any of those, make sure you treat those based on the recommendations for conditions. So that brings me to my fun part here. So specific tests or exercise tests for older adults that will help you with some of the that are based on some of the studies and new research that's been found. Gait speed. So that's one. And we also know that for COPD, that's one that's used. 6-minute walk. So how much distance you travel in 6 minutes. All right, I think this is the one that I'll show you here. So this book, if you're going to work with mostly maybe in physical therapy school, if you go through, they'll use this. It's called the Senior Fitness Test Manual. For those of you how many of you are going into physical therapy? Raise your hand. Okay, a big chunk of your clients are going to be older adults. It's just where the money is. Okay, I know you all want to work with athletes, but the majority of your clientele is going to be older adults. It's just so this would be one of the books that you want to be familiar with. It talks about gait speed, balance, chair, getting out of a chair. Other tests: chair stand, arm curls, get up and go. The 6-minute walk, step test, sit and reach, and back scratch. I believe this is the get out of the chair one, if I remember. Okay. Oops, what happened here? I think I talked about this. Oh no, aerobic activity we didn't. So the recommendations, again, it depends on where they're starting from. So, but at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity activity on 5 or more days. But if they've been previously sedentary, they might have to start with light, right? So eventually we want to get to that, or they can do a combination. And again, whenever possible, consider group social environments. Those have the highest adherence rate and lead to the best outcomes for older adults, especially those that are retired older adults. As far as rating of perceived exertion, 5 to 6 or 7 to 8 vigors on the scale from 1 to 10. For older adults, it's easier to gauge the scale from 1 to 10. I think for most of us, but in particular for older adults, the 6 to 20 is just like what? So they have an easier time with 5 being in the middle of intensity to knowing what that feels like, and then higher intensity being 7 to 8. So we have, so as far as priorities, resistance training, some type of group exercise, cardiovascular, or really maybe we can combine it all into group exercise like silver sneakers, that'd be great. But we also want to focus on flexibility, activity, and neuromotor exercise, because again, with aging, we're going to lose some of that. And so stretches, start with 10 to 30 seconds, just to not pain. Gentle tension is my cue, so mild discomfort, discomfort, not pain, never going for pain. Some of them that might have exercised a long time ago and they used to go, oh, it has to hurt or it's not good, so you have to re-educate them if that's what they think they need to be doing, of all major muscle groups, but be particularly mindful of shoulder flexibility, right? Making sure they're nice and tall on the spine, lifting those knees up like she was doing in the video, right? Because those are some of the things that happen as they increase leg strength. So some of you demonstrated that you walk like this, right? Well, that's to do because you have more balance, right? You did the tandem walking. The more I open up my legs out, the more balanced I am, and also this way I don't have to like lift my knee up, right, to walk, right? Because I don't have quad strength, right? So I'm walking almost with my legs straight. Can you guys see? Am I doing that very okay? And so as we get the legs stronger, they're more upright, then they can walk like we walk. Okay, don't get in front of me because I'm gonna run you over. So then we can see more of that going on. So That's the goal of training. Neuromotor exercises, and just like, again, tandem walking and standing on feet close together, right? Lifting one knee up and standing on one leg. All of those things are going to help. I teach a HIIT class on Mondays at 6 a.m. at the Avita Y, and I have a 71, I think he is now, older adult that comes in, and we do agility, guys. He goes at his own pace. So, we're doing agility, and he's like, and I do have different ones, so he can pick one that is all by himself, and sometimes he's just a lot slower. Just a lot slower, okay? But he's gotten faster since we've been doing this, okay? So that's, and he didn't used to jump rope, so we jump rope in the class, right? So we started with just doing this, and now he's really good at doing this. He does this, and now he can do this, okay? And now he's getting to where he's moving the rope this way and doing this, okay? My goal is to get him to actually jump, okay? But we're getting there. Body awareness, where you are in space. So it's just, they do it all at a lower intensity, but you can bring it all in. There's some studies that done in Finland with older adults and Olympic lifts. Olympic lifts. Granted, they're only doing the bar, just the bar, but because why? Because we lose type 2 muscle fibers, the ones associated with strength and power. So, tandem walks, circle turns, you guys all did this already, right? All of these things with progressive difficulty, standing on one leg, walking, all of those things that we already did. Oh yeah, heel stands and toe stands. Stand up. Stand on your heels. We're going to do that one a lot. Stand up. So walk in your heels, all right? Because you lose flexibility there, so you can walk in your heels. If you have shin splints, ever walk in your heels. It helps. Strengthen your anterior tibialis. So walk in your heels, right? All right. Walk in your toes. Walk in your toes. Okay. Toe walking. So all of that can be incorporated. Okay. And you can make it all more challenging by closing your eyes. So if I put you on that standing on one leg and you close your eyes, you begin to lose your balance a little bit. Try it. Stand up. What is wrong with you guys? You know the name of your major? If you were keeping track, you can thank me later because you'll have more steps. All right. So stand on both feet. Now stand on one leg. Okay. Stand on one leg. Now close your eyes. All right. So you all kind of sway. Close your eyes. Close them. Don't cheat. Don't cheat. All right. Switch legs. Why is that? Because we took one of your gauges out. You don't know where you are in space. You can't see. One of your senses is taken out. Okay. So all right. Now go ahead and see. Those that stood for me. Big hand to you. All right. You got the benefit because you got. No, you got the benefit. That's the beauty of exercise. When you do it, it's for you. It's for you. Right? You get the benefit. Okay. Now, very last part, and this is the part that you got, again, just like we're working with kids, you have to look, because you have to be careful because older adults are not children. So sometimes because we think they can't hear us, or we think they don't understand us, we begin to talk to older adults like they're kids, and their experience, and that becomes a little offensive, all right, in the meaning. So you have to be careful. Yes, you do have to speak more clearly. You have to enunciate. You have to, I'm just talking to myself, you have to speak slower, right? But you have to make sure you don't sound condescending in how you do it. So motivating older adults to exercise can be challenging. There's studies that show that less than 5% of adults over 50 engage in regular exercise at a moderate intensity. So there is a lot of concern and fear that somehow they're like conserving themselves by not doing things, so keeping themselves safe from injury because they don't do stuff. Okay, and kind of the same thought that we used to have with pregnancy, that they shouldn't do anything because you're going to hurt something. And the opposite is true. The not doing is what's going to get you to stop doing. So calm fears by using, again, talk about the psychological benefits. Start very small and gradual, break it down. Short-term short goals where they can get success. And as they get success, they're going to believe that this is going to work out. So make sure you have a very clearly defined goals and objectives that they agree upon. They know what to expect each workout. That you're not going to throw them into a boot camp class all of a sudden. okay? So that they know what's going on and what the plan is and why we're doing this. And they love to talk. So listen. They love, so make sure that that is all mutually agreed upon, and that resistance exercise, oops, I went too far. Make sure you may have to explain everything we talked about today in class. Why resistance exercise, lifting weights, weight training, tubing, bands is a priority for them as they're getting older. To, again, delay disability, to keep them independent. Okay, important. Be certainly, again, very gradual. Be conservative. When you think that you can do a few more, hold back. Okay, speak to them, talk to them, tell them what's coming up. Don't surprise them. Positive reinforcement. I don't need to say that, but positive feedback. Let them know when they're doing the things right. And as far as correction, be very specific. Not like everything you're doing is wrong. Okay, very difficult. It's hard to go to fix that. And again, they gonna have a lot of questions, especially the baby boomer generation that's getting older, and they're not gonna voluntarily tell you things. So you're gonna have to ask how things are working out. Ask about pain through the range of motion, because they may think that's normal because it's something they experience throughout their lives. But make sure you ask specific questions to gauge how they're handling the exercise. And oh yeah, I can't even, if I could say just talk to them here, just lots of talking. Listen, mostly listen a lot. Be a great listener, and pre-exercise and post-exercise, connect that. It's a social aspect of being involved in exercise. Connect them to other people like them. Make sure that they make friends. Remember about group exercise. Okay, so I'm almost there, you guys. So here's kind of what would be and this could be something I could ask you in a test, but with the situation. Think about if there's any problem with this. Just before a set of body weight squats, so all we're doing is this, okay, just like getting up and down from your chair. The exercise professional delivers the following instructions to an older client. Remember to keep your head and chest up and keep your back straight, then squat until your knees are at a 90-degree angle, making sure not to allow your knees to move towards each other, and then breathe out as you rise back to full height. Yeah? What's wrong with that? Yeah, even for you, like, what? Okay, way too much information. One thing at a time. Maybe I'm working on posture first, okay? Maybe I'm going to demonstrate first, okay? Maybe I'm doing just a quarter squat first. So one step at a time. And I have heard stuff like this, okay? Like through group exercise instructor through the microphone. What? Did you get all that? No, I did not get all that. Okay, and then as they're doing it, again, evaluate. Give them, if you need to correct, give them one clear correction at the time. Okay, all right. I got some questions, and then we're gonna go. Actually, I leave them here because you guys can look at those. But look at those questions before you take the quiz. Okay. What's that? What did you ask a question? These are all questions that may be quiz. I have a few here, but I have all the answers there. And then here I gave you an example. I want you to think about this, okay, of something you might see similar to this on your next exam. So here's Betty. She's 82. She has no signs of cardiovascular, metabolic, renal, or pulmonary disease. That should give you some, if you're going through the ACSM screening, okay. She would like to start an exercise program. So what does that tell you? Is she exercising? Sedentary. Her children think she should move to an assisted living center. But Betty wants to be able to stay home and care for herself. Although she has not been active in recent years, she used to walk 1 mile a day until she developed arthritis, so that we need to know that. And her knee at age 50. Okay, so I could ask you questions like, what would be the first thing you would do? That would be maybe ACSM screening, right? What kind of exercise programming might be your focus with Betty? You think probably resistance training would be in there? Yeah. Probably, right? Okay, so some types of exercises. Precautions would be, well, you need to follow the chart, right? And maybe you know that she has arthritis, right? And so maybe what barriers you may encounter, she's, that we just talked about, she's 82, and could she have possibly some fears and, right, be reservations about certain things, right? All right, so that's the kind of questions, and for your final, it's going to be it's going to be this, and you have different questions. So we'll have I haven't finished it yet, but 9 to 10 of these with different questions, so about 50 to 60 questions. Probably 50, because then we'll have some questions from your presentations that start next week. Okay? Anything? I would like to do the articles, but I don't think you guys have the patience. I know it's the end of the semester. Okay, I'll read all your articles on my own. Okay. All right, if you have any questions, I'll be here for better. Remember, we start next week. Be prompt. Dress professionally. Doesn't mean a suit, by the way. Doesn't mean a suit. Professionally for us could be a polo shirt and khakis. Okay. So you can still wear, just not like your nightgowns and stuff. Okay.